Welcome to PD on the Go, the podcast that delivers bite-sized learning on communication, collaboration, and facilitation skills for busy teacher leaders. Tune in while you're in the car, on your lunch break, or making copies, and get ready to level up your leadership skills. My name is Mary Beth Anderson, and I'm with the Office of Professional Learning in Fairfax County Public Schools, and today I'm joined by my colleague, Hallie Case.
Hello.
Hello. So today we are continuing to work on challenges that teacher leaders shared with us during our PLC series. And one that we saw often was around the idea of what do we do when teams are in different places in the curriculum. So creating this pacing gap. And the challenge here is that we're not able to make decisions, look at data, unpack in a way that's real time for all of us, and to support our students with getting through the curriculum.
Right.
So when we thought about this, the first thing that came to mind was guaranteed viable curriculum. And really, what does that mean and how does it support our pacing and our instruction? So Hallie, can you tell us a little bit about guaranteed and viable curriculum?
Yeah. So I'm going to call it GVC,
Okay.
which is a part of PLC.
We love acronym here in FCPS.
But those aren't ours. This
Yes.
comes from the research around professional learning communities. And essentially what a GVC is saying is that as a team, we're making a commitment that we're guaranteeing that students will learn. So sometimes we hear that, education is an opportunity, and we gave students the opportunity to learn, and whether or not it happened, we gave the opportunity. But in a PLC, what we're saying is, no, we're guaranteeing that you're going to learn these essential standards. I wouldn't feel good as a teacher if I sent you off to the next grade level without you having learned these things. And it's viable, so that's the V. It's a viable curriculum when it can actually be taught in the time that's available.
Okay.
So we're guaranteeing that it's a viable curriculum, but the problems start to occur with this is when pacing varies week by week. And then the guarantee disappears because the teacher down the hall's students might be receiving everything and my students might not be. And then we have this lottery situation where we really hope we get Miss Anderson because Miss Case isn't teaching everything. So we need to really think about pacing isn't about teaching the exact same things every single day, but it is about looking at the instructional window, the viable time that we have to make sure that we can fit in those guaranteed standards.
Yeah, and I think when people hear pacing, they start to think about that piece of the autonomy. My kids needed an extra day. So am I just supposed to move on so I can stay on pace? We hear that a lot. And it's really not about that. It's we have to think about, one tip to sort of help teams with this is when you're building your pacing calendar, thinking about those buffer days, because there's always something that comes up. One thing about teaching, no day is ever the same.
Right.
And there's things that come up either in the schedule, master schedule, or your
Snow
days, delays,
Yep.
or the students do need extra time, or you're going to adjust. So having that pacing calendar, and our county is really good about most subjects have a pacing calendar or have those essential skills, but not all content areas do. So it's important for the team to come together to identify those essential skills.
Yep.
So I know when I am short on time, what things do I need to ensure I'm teaching so that students walk away with that guaranteed curriculum.
Yeah. So what you're talking about isn't a list of dates necessarily, although dates are important, but you're looking at a big picture calendar. We're agreeing as a team, here's our launch date for a unit and here's our end date. We need to give the assessment by this date, and then allowing for some wiggle room within those parameters to make sure that we're guaranteeing what we said we would teach.
Yeah, and it makes me think a little bit about this because in this window, maybe my students did need the entire window until the test. But I also think about teachers who finish a week early because their students maybe came in already knowing some of those essential standards. And sometimes what happens on teams is the teacher who the kids already know. They've now moved on to the next unit, and that affects your CLT. And so really that's where you have time to answer question 4. What are we going to do if they've already learned it? So you can embed some enrichment into that, and so that we're still taking the test on the same day and coming together to be able to talk about the data and make some decisions as a team.
So pacing is like, there's lots in a GVC that we could unpack. It's more than just pacing. But if we focus on just that component of it, what are some, like, let's get into the practicality again, right? Like, what do? We have a calendar. What else?
So if we have like a list of our essential standards, we could be checking in on them every week. There's a structure called stoplight pacing, and you can really look at each one. So how are we doing on, main idea and detail?
Sure.
Green light, we're all there. Maybe there's yellow because we're in a couple different areas, or I have some students I'm still reteaching with, or red light, like we haven't got to that and we need some support to catch up. And I think it's important that as a team we can say, listen, I haven't got to that and we're coming to the end. What are some ideas that we can come up with that I can do this? So we're all in it together and not just leaving someone out. Oh, well, they're not with us, so we're just moving on.
Right. And I think another way to do that is by thinking, like, also within your pacing calendar, accounting for your intervention window. So we know that in FCPS, all schools have a block of time where students can receive intervention or like reteaching on those essential standards that we've guaranteed that they will learn. Right. And what some schools do is they share the load of intervention, where it might not just be me teaching my students. Like, we maybe share. So some of my kids go to you for a certain standard. Some of your kids come to me. And by planning for that and knowing, hey, this is our intervention week, then I know as a teacher, well, my students need to have the assessment by then so that we know which ones need intervention.
Right.
And that could happen throughout a unit too and be based on formative assessment data. It doesn't just need to be the summative.
Yeah. And it's a way to keep up with that reteaching even if you're past your window and moving on to the next thing. Because I know that's something that teachers always are challenged with, is that they have kids that still haven't got all those essential skills, but it's time to move on.
Right.
Within the larger pacing calendar.
So accounting for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one more thing that we can have teams do is really leverage strengths, because there's usually one person on the team that is keeping up with the pacing or has some ideas, or maybe they're a veteran with that curriculum. So they really understand what's essential and what maybe shortcuts you can take or things that you could combine. So really lifting that person up, not as a way of like, I'm the expert and you have to do it how I'm doing it, but being able to share some ideas.
Yeah, like a share fair of, okay, what are we doing to make sure that we're on track for students?
That's great. So we have some resources that we can offer our listeners. We have a whole page on Guaranteed and Viable Curriculum, GVC, on our PLC site. So we will be sure to link that page on our teacher leadership site, and you can find those resources for today's episode and all of our episodes there. And you can find that link in our bio on our Instagram page at FCPS_PD. And if you're in Fairfax, you can also search for us on our Atlas page. But thank you for tuning in on today's episode, and hopefully you'll join us next week for more PD on the Go.